We continue now at the top of Daf Tzadi Aleph Amid Beis Meseches Eruvin. This is Eruvin Daf 91b. Gemara is trying another proof to try to prove one way or the other in terms of whether Rabbi Shimon says his halacha, his leniency, when they made an Eruv, or he only says this when they did not make an Eruv. Again, Rabbi Shimon held you're allowed to transfer from a gag to a chutzer to a karfif. All those things are fine. And the issue is, well, if they made an Eruv, maybe there's going to be some items that started off Shabbos in the house that go to the chutzer, and then that item can't be transferred from one chutzer to the other. So does Rabbi Shimon permit even in that case? So Tashma coming here, Anshe chutzer v'anshe marpeses sheshachu v'lo irvu. Let's say you have people in a chutzer, people in a marpeses. Again, they forget, they don't make an Eruv together. Kol shegavoa yud tfachim lemarpeses. Any area that's above 10 tfachim belongs to those who are on the balcony. Pachos mikan lechutzer. Any area below 10 tfachim belong to those people who are in the chutzer. Bamed devar mamurim. When is this all true? Shahayu elu shel rabim ve'elu shel rabim, where each one belongs to multiple people. There are multiple people who live in the chutzer, multiple people who live up in the aliyah. Ve'irvu elu le'atzman ve'elu le'atzman. And each group makes their own eruv. O shel yichidim, or let's say they belong to individuals. She'ein tzrich la'arev, so they don't even need to make an eruv. Aval hayu shel rabim v'shachachu v'lo eruv. But let's say it belongs to multiple residents and they don't make an eruv together. So in that situation, gag v'chotzer v'achsadro marpeses. When it comes to the roof and the chotzer, the achsadro, the marpeses, kulon rishus achasein. They are all considered one rishus. You could transfer from one to the other. So it seems pretty explicit over here. Taima de lo irvu. The reason why suddenly you can transfer from gag to chotzer to achsadro to marpeses is because they didn't make an eruv. Ha irvu lo. But apparently, if they made an eruv, it would be prohibited. And the Gemara is assuming this is the position of Rabbi Shimon. Gemara says no, it's not even Rabbi Shimon. Ha mani rabbanon he. This brisa has nothing to do with Rabbi Shimon. This is actually the position of the rabbanon, and the rabbanon happen to hold that these areas are one rishus. And Dekanami will even bring you a proof. The lo katani karfif umavui. You do not see in this list karfif and mavui. If this was the lenient opinion of Rabbi Shimon, he would have said you can also transfer to a karfif, to a mavui. It doesn't say that here. So this is the position of the rabbanon, who are slightly more strict than Rabbi Shimon. Shma mino. You see from this that is in fact the case. So it's not a proof to the position of Rabbi Shimon. Gemara tries another proof. Tashma coming here. Chamish chatzeros hapsuchos zulazu upsuchos lamavui. You have 5 chatzeros. They open up into one another, and they also open up into the mavui. V'shachu kulam v'lo irvu. They all forget, and they do not make an eruv together. Asr lahachnes ulahotzi mechotzer lamavui. You're not allowed to carry things from the chotzer to the mavui. Umin hamavui lechotzer, or from the mavui to the chotzer. V'kelim sheshavsu bechotzer, but kelim that start off Shabbos in the chotzer. Mutter lataltalon bechotzer. You're allowed to move them around in the chotzer. Uvemavui aser, and in the mavui it's a problem. V'Rabbi Shimon matir, and Rabbi Shimon says it's okay. Shahaya Rabbi Shimon Omer, because Rabbi Shimon says Kol zman shein shel rabim, if it belongs to multiple people, v'shachu v'lo irvu, and they forget and they don't make an eruv. Gag v'chotzer v'achsadro marpeses v'karfif umavui. All of these different areas, a roof, a chotzer, an achsadra, a marpeses, a karfif, and a mavui, kulan rishus achasein, they're all considered one rishus. You can carry through all of them. And again, it seems to be very clear in this brisa, taima de lo irvu. The reason why this suddenly becomes permitted is because there was no eruv. Ha irvu lo. But if they did make an eruv, it would be problematic. So the Gemara answers, my lo irvu. No, you don't understand what it means. What does it mean they didn't make an eruv? Lo irvu chatzeros bahadi hadadi. All the brisa means is that the chatzeros did not make an eruv with one another. Ha chatzer ubatim irvu. But the chutzer and the houses, maybe they did have an eruv together, so there's no real proof. So the Gemara says, "V'ha lo irvu katani." What are you talking about? It says lo irvu, and it's clearly talking about not only chutzer to chutzer; it's talking about everything. So the Gemara says, "No, my lo irvu lo nishtatu." It doesn't mean an eruv, because an eruv, in fact, that would be the case. Irvu would mean that the houses are also included. So he says, no, what it means is lo nishtatu. They didn't make a shitufei mavos, which would have just connected the chatzeros. So in other words, to reiterate over here, it's very possible that in this brisa each independent chutzer made an eruv with the houses within that chutzer. And when it says irvu, which would have implied that they made it, lo irvu rather, which would imply they didn't make the eruv, what it really means is lo nishtatu. The chatzeros didn't join together in a shitufei mavos. So now those areas, the chutzer to the karfif to the mavai, all those areas are allowed to carry. Even maybe they did make eruv chatzeros, and that's how the Gemara answers answer number 1. V'ba yisem, or we can have another answer to this. Rabbi Shimon ledivreim derabbanan ka'amar lahu. It could be that Rabbi Shimon over here in this brisa was really speaking lefi the rabbanan. He was answering according to the rabbanan. He wasn't saying his own position. He says lididi, according to me, lo shna irvu v'lo shna lo irvu. It doesn't matter if they made an eruv. It doesn't matter if they didn't make an eruv. I would hold it's permitted anyway. But according according to you, Oduli Mias, Tehecha de Lo Irvu, Rishas Achasi, at least you should admit to me that if they didn't make an Eruv, it's one Rishus and you can carry. V'yamru le Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan say back, Lo, Shtei Rishuyos, say no, in our opinion, it's actually Shtei Rishuyos. We don't allow the carrying to a Mavui, or those types of things. They're not all considered one Rishus. Rashi over here says, V'yamri le Rabbanan lo, begag v'chotzer v'achsadr umar peses modinalach. As we said before already a couple times, the Rabbanan admit to Rabbi Shimon by a roof and a chotzer and achsadr umar peses. Those we admit that it's all one Rishus. Aval bekarfif umavui lo, but to carry to a karfif and a mavui, that we do not agree, and that is the machlokas in this brisa between Rabbi Shimon and the Rabbanan. Now the Gemara returns to this brisa to analyze a different point. Amar Mar, the master said, uve mavui aser. It says in the mavui it is aser. Lema Messiah Rabbi Zera Marav. This seems to support the statement that Rabbi Zera made in the name of Rav. Tiyamar Rabbi Zera Marav, because Rabbi Zera said in the name of Rav, Mavoi Shalom Nishtatzfu Bo. If you have a mavoi that did not make a shitufei mavos, ein metatlan ella b'dal ramos. You're only allowed to carry in that mavoi, talking about within the mavoi, not from a different area to the mavoi, but within the mavoi you can only carry dal ramos. So for that the Gemara answers ema ulim mavoi aser. Don't say ubim mavoi aser. It means to the mavoi. You cannot carry to the mavoi. So the Gemara says Hainu Reisha, but you already said that in the beginning of this brisa. It said again in the brisa, Aser lahachnas lahotzi mechatzer lemavoi. You can't take to the mavoi. And then at the end it says again, ubim mavoi aser. If you're going to change that to lim mavoi aser, you've said the same thing twice. So what's going on over here? So the Gemara says, Mishnah Yisera, it's trichale. No, we do need to repeat it for the following chiddush. Ma'u detema, what might you have thought? Ki pligi Rabbanan oled Rabbi Shimon. When did the Rabbanan argue on Rabbi Shimon? Hani mili hecha de irvu. Maybe they only argue on Rabbi Shimon when there was an Eruv. Maybe they admit that even mavoi, even karfif, it's all permitted if no eruv was made. Kamash malon. That's why we're reiterating the point and saying no, even in a situation where they don't make an eruv, the Rabbanan are strict in that scenario. The Gemara says, Amar le Ravina le Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph.